Hey guys! So first off, I wanted to say Happy New Year, and it's kind of crazy that this is the first week of 2018, and I hope everything has been going super well for you by now. But I wanted to start off the year on a good note with my channel, and so I'm going to be talking about how I paint skin with watercolors. And before I get started, I wanted to say that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. So thank you so much to them for making it possible for me to put in a little bit more time and energy into a video. And if you don't know what Skillshare is, it's an online learning community with thousands of classes in things such as art, design, entrepreneurship like business, and even social media and how you can grow with that kind of stuff. Premium membership is $10 a month, and with it you can have access to every class on Skillshare. So you can try out a class, each class has a project, so you can upload your final project to Skillshare and the teacher can look at it and give you helpful critiques on it. So it's a pretty useful website. I'm personally using it right now for After Effects. One of my goals for 2018 is to improve my video production and the style and aesthetic and the quality of my videos, and so I have to sort of learn After Effects for some of the effects that I would want in my videos, and so it's going to take a little bit of time, but hopefully I will be able to create nicer videos as the year progresses. But since it's January, New Year's resolutions, goals and stuff, I think it's a great idea if you want to learn a new skill set or you want to pontificate on something that you would like to learn a little bit more about. If you'd like to try out the website, I will have a little link down in the description for 99 cents for your first 3 months of Skillshare. It's open to everybody who wants to use it, but it is going to expire by the end of January, so be sure to take advantage of it before the month is over. Now to talking about how I paint skin with watercolors. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be talking about how I paint light to medium skin tones rather than darker ones. I have painted darker skin tones with watercolors, but I'm not the best at it and I do struggle a little bit with it. So I will have a couple of tips regarding those, but mainly it'll focus on light to medium tones. So first off, I wanted to say that when you're beginning to paint skin with watercolors, I would suggest that you always start off with a base color for the skin rather than using the white of the paper to begin with. Now, if you are very confident with your abilities with watercolors, you can start making stylistic choices in which you can sort of break rules about realism and values and all that kind of stuff. But to begin with, I would really suggest starting off with a base color, and usually I use a sort of a terracotta color, or maybe I'll mix in a little bit of a purple to that to sort of tint the color a little bit. But usually I'll use sort of a terracotta brown color. And a pale wash of this is definitely a very good idea for light to medium skin tones. If you're going to be painting a darker skin tone, you can add a little bit of a purple or a blue to that terracotta color, and it will help create a cooler tone for the skin. When applying that first wash, I also think it's important to wet the paper before you actually apply the color. It's going to make the color be able to blend very smoothly and have a very seamless transition. It's not going to leave any watercolor lines. When painting with watercolors, you always have to paint from light to dark rather than how you can with oil paintings or with digital paintings. Start from a darker shade and work your highlights in at the end. Because you have to work from light to dark, sometimes working with watercolors will throw you off with your values and shades, and so it's always important to start off with a little bit of a darker color than just the white of the paper, because if you rely on the white of the paper for the rest of your values on the face, it's going to be way too light and it will throw all the values of your skin tones a little bit off. So starting off with a little bit of a darker skin tone for the base is a good idea. Next, I would like to say that differences in color on the face are subtle. Light layers are easier to work with than very rich and bold layers, and I know that a lot of times when working with watercolors, it's easier to be too timid with the colors than bolder, but I have noticed that some people will jump right in with like very pink or red tones for the cheeks or the lips, and I would say that it's always very exciting to paint the fun parts first, but I would recommend working with light layers and layering even the warmer tones on the face, such as for the nose, the lips, and the cheeks. I would definitely recommend layering those colors. It's going to give you deeper and richer undertones, and it's not going to really throw off the rest of the colors for the painting. I'd also recommend that when you're working with light layers on the skin, that you're also working on the rest of the painting at the same time and not just focusing on the face, because if you just focus on the face, you leave the rest of the paper white, it's going to throw off your colors again. So I definitely recommend setting in some of your darker shades as well for the background. Making sure you have some of the darkest colors that you will have in the final piece is good for making sure that the tones and values on the face are balanced and they're not too bright, because they're thrown off by the brightness of the paper. Next, I would say that for mixing light to medium skin tones, mixing oranges and pinks with earth toned greens helps make a neutral skin tone and helps with shadows that are realistic looking. I know that a lot of times whenever you're starting off thinking of skin tones, you just think of a peachy, fleshy color, and a lot of times that tends to be too warm and too pink. So adding like a sap kind of green, a little bit of that to the wash that you're making with the orange and the pink will help make it a little bit more neutral and a little more realistic. So I've noticed that adding a tiny bit of green helps. For darker skin tones, I would suggest adding more blues and purple to the orange, pinks, and greens, and that will aid with a cooler looking skin tone. Just adding also like a burnt umber color will help with deepening that shade without just adding like an actual black paint to the image. That's going to make it very gray and uninteresting. Remembering that what makes a watercolor painting is sort of the undertones that go with the layers does help you in figuring out your vision for the painting. Next, I would say that different areas of the face require sort of different colors. So bonier parts of the face, such as the forehead, the jawline, and the chin, sort of bonier areas, will require more green and blue in that orange and pink shade. Not a lot more. As I said, differences in color on the face are very subtle, but a tiny bit of added green to some place like the forehead or the jaw will help it be a little bit more bonier and cooler looking, while for fleshier areas such as the cheeks, the eyes, and the lips, it is a good idea to add a little bit more of that orange and that pink into the color. As I said, subtle changes with light washes will be very useful, and it's going to be easier to work with lighter, subtle layers as a beginner rather than jumping in with too much color. Next, I would suggest using watercolor edges to your advantage. Sometimes you can use them to create harder shapes, shadows, and contours on the face, while lifting those edges will create softer layers, such as building up tones in the cheeks and the nose, or maybe softer shadows, that kind of thing. When you want to add color gradually to the face and have soft layers, lifting those edges with a wet and clean brush will be advantageous. Of course, I'm using a watercolor set that does lift very easily, and so you have to know the watercolor set that you're using, how it works or not, but I definitely recommend using something that will lift. It's a little bit more forgiving. Lastly, I'd like to mention that you shouldn't be discouraged if your painting doesn't look really great as you're working on it. Usually my watercolor paintings and oil paintings and traditional kind of paintings in general will look pretty terrible until the very end when you pull in all the finishing touches. And so just be sure to have a vision in mind for what you would like the final result to look like, and think about ways that you can practically come to that result. Don't rush your process and don't become impatient with it. If you stick through it and have a vision, in the end it will turn out well. That's like one of the biggest things I've learned about watercolors is they're not going to look good until the very, very end. So it's okay if it kind of looks like garbage, just stick to it and it'll be fine in the end. So yeah, those are some of my tips for painting skin with watercolors. I hope they were pretty helpful to you, and if you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos, because I put them out every single Sunday. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye!